Hello, my name is Janelyn Briggs, and today I'm teaching Create a Survey Bar Graph for math students in second grade. In the previous grade, students, this is prerequisite skills or prior knowledge they should have. In the previous grade, students have been asked to organize, represent, and interpret data with up to 3 categories, ask and answer questions about the total number of data points, how many in each category, and how many more or less in one category than in another. The standard that we're following today is draw a picture graph and a bar graph with single unit scale to represent a data set with up to 4 categories, solve simple put together, take apart, and comparison problems using information presented in a bar graph. This is standard 2 MD10 from the Utah State Office of Education core standards. And the learning objectives that we have for today: students will interpret a survey bar graph by answering questions in a group setting with 80% accuracy. And students will conduct a survey of fellow classmates and then create a bar graph to accurately represent the data with 80% accuracy. So I will begin. All right, class, today we are going to continue our unit on graphs. We use graphs to organize information and make it easier to understand. When do you see graphs in everyday life? Some answers the students might say is the doctor measuring my height or the news for the rainfall. Yes, these are all great examples of when we use graphs for everyday life. We're going to read a book called Lemonade for Sale by Stuart J. Murphy. This book relates real life problems that children might have to creating a bar graph. So the students, so in the story, they make lemonade and they use a bar graph to track their sales. So as I read, I'll talk about the graph and show how it represents. So these are some questions that I would ask the students. What did they label the horizontal axis? What did they label the vertical axis? And I'll point to it so that if they have forgotten what the vertical and horizontal is, that they can know. And at the end, I'll ask, how did graphing help the club? And were you surprised by anything on the graph to help the students learn? And the real meat of the lesson that I'm going to teach for you today is this next part. We're going to make some bar graphs today. First, let's look at the different parts of the graph that I have on my board. Oh, let's see if I can get this so you can see this giant board. Okay, class. So here is my whiteboard. First, let's look at the different parts of the graph. So what is the title? Who can find the title on this graph? Yes, Joey? Yes, up here, dice sums. So often the title of the graph will be on top, or sometimes it'll be on the bottom down here, but this is usually the best place to find it. Dice sums. Yep. What is the horizontal axis? Do you remember from the story and from what we've talked about previously? Yes, thank you, Claire. Horizontal is down here. What is this? Sum of 2 dice. Yep. So these are the sums of 2 dice. So the sum could be 2 or 3 or 4 when we roll 2 dice, the sums. And then what is on the vertical axis, Adrian? Yep, you kind of have to turn sideways to read it. It says number of times rolled. So this side will show how many times. So if I roll 2 dice and I get a 3, then I would have a 1, 3. Well, let's say I got 2 3s. Then I would draw my bar all the way up here. Does that make sense? Okay, so what is the least number on the horizontal axis? Yeah, this is a little confusing. So the 0 is only for the vertical axis. Thanks, that was confusing on my part. Let me fix that for you. So, my marker. Yeah, so not 0, because if you roll 2 dice, you're going to get something. Yeah, okay. Bobby, why do you think it's 2 and not 1? Because you can't get 1 when you roll 2 dice. Yes, good thinking. And what about the highest number? What is the greatest number on the horizontal axis? Yep, 12. And why do you think that's the highest number on the horizontal axis? Because when you roll 2 dice, the highest that you can possibly get is 12, right? You get 2 6s, you get 12. Great. So those are questions that can help maybe these gifted students think more critically about why the graph might be showing this data, and that really help all the students. So I'm just going to put this down. So when scientists do experiments, they usually collect the results first and then make a graph to show it, because if we're graphing as we go, it can get a little messy. So that's what we're going to do today with dice. So each member of the table group is going to roll the dice, and as you do, you'll record the sum as a tally mark on your tally sheet. See my tally sheet here? So each of you also have a tally sheet. So let's say Adrian's table rolls. Adrian rolls and gets a 4. So what do you put here? 1 tally mark. Yep. And let's say Sam also gets a 4. 2 tally marks. Great. And do you guys remember what you do when you get to 5? Yes, great, Sarah. Yes, you do a slash, so you know there's 5. So that's how we're going to count them up today, okay? So I'm going to set a timer for 3 minutes. When the timer goes off, we're going to come back together, and each table will tell me their survey results, and I'll graph them on this big chart I have on the board. So you're just going to collect your results together right now. So again, each member of the table group is going to take turns rolling the dice. As you do, you'll record the sum as a tally mark on your tally sheet. So everyone get ready. Choose who's going to go first, and I'm going to start my timer. Ready, go. So for these 3 minutes, I'll walk around to the different students and make sure they understand, each group understands what I'm asking them. And make sure that they're all being included and they're asking questions of each other or talking to each other about the answers. So there's not just one person that's rolling the dice or one person writing the tallies, but that they're all engaged together so that it can help these students that may be struggling. They have a lot of chances to see other students do it and see that modeled for them. And they also get feedback from the other students to help them so that everyone can stay with it together. And then maybe again, for those gifted students, maybe I'll ask them to predict, like, hey, what do you think is going to be the highest answer? Because we know that there's more ways for them to get 6, 7, or 8 than 2s and 12s. So maybe have those students that could go a little farther, start thinking critically about what they think the highest answers in the class would be if we did enough of these. All right, students, so now that you have your results, I'm going to go table by table and have you tell me how many people got each number, and we'll add everyone's in. So on this board, I'm going to ask each table group to tell me their numbers. So table 1, how many 2s did you get? 4. Okay, so I'm going to say that I have this tally sheet on this board. So I'm going to write 4, and so 4 2s for table 1. Okay. Table 2, how many did you get? 2. Okay. Table 3, how many 2s did you get? 0. Okay. Table 4, how many did you get? Just 1. Okay. So looks like I have 4 tables, and I have 4 plus 2 plus 0 plus 1. So who can add those up and tell me how high my bar graph should be for number 2? So I'll do that with the students, have them practice addition skills with us. So we do it. Yeah, we've got 7. So I'll put 7 way up here, which of course would be very high. And I would go through that with all of the numbers until we get to 12. And then we'll discuss the results of the class. So, all right, now that we have our bar graph, what do you notice? I'm just not going to keep holding that, but I'm showing them the board, and we're going to discuss the results. What do you notice about these? I might say, oh, 6 is the highest, or 2 didn't get a lot, or no, hardly anyone got 12, or whatever they notice about the graph, or maybe it looks kind of like this. And we'll discuss it. Okay, yeah, that's really interesting. Yep, there's only 1 12. That's so interesting. Why? Is that surprising to you? No, Joe, it's not surprising to you. How come? Because there was only one way to get a 12. Yeah, you had to roll double 6s. What about 6? How many 6s did we get? Quite a lot. Yeah, how come? Because there's lots of ways to get 6 when you roll 2 dice. You're right. So I'll talk to them about that, ask them what they were surprised about, and kind of get them to think critically. So let's see, and now we're going to graph the data in small groups. So we have here on the board our data that we have for the entire class. Now I want each of you each have a bar graph at your table, and I want each person at the table to graph the data at your table. So table 1, look at every person in table 1, look at your tallies and mark it on your graph. So if you have a 0, put 0. You don't have to put anything on the graph for 2. And then you got 2 3s. So everyone will, on their individual paper, make a bar up to the 3. Okay, so everyone take a second to do that, and I'll walk around and help if anyone has questions. So look at just your individual tables tallies. We're going to compare what your individual tables tallies are compared to the whole class tallies. So this will be a guided practice for them to do exactly what I just did on the board, but do it independently. But everyone at the table is working on the same thing. So if they have questions or they're not getting it or something, they can ask. And I can also walk around and see who seems to be doing it really fast and okay, they're definitely getting it, and who seems to be struggling, and kind of prompt them more like, okay, 2 is here, so where is it on your graph? And show them those things. And then I'll ask them questions like, what do you notice about your bar graph compared to the class bar graph? Is there anything that is pretty similar? Is there anything that is very different? And let the class discuss. Oh yeah, it looks like we had a lot of 5s, or our 5s were higher than the 6s, but the whole class's 6s were higher, that kind of thing. So have them kind of talk about what they had versus what we had when we had the whole class data. And then for our practice, the students will make their own survey, gather data, and graph the results. So scientists make surveys when they have things they want to know. Today, you're going to make your own survey, gather data, and graph the results of something you want to know. And I'm going to show you some previous year's examples. So here's one graph that we have. Now, what are they trying to measure? Look at the title and someone tell me what they are measuring. Yeah, Lydia. Yes, they wanted to know what is everyone's favorite season, or what are people's most favorite seasons? What is your favorite season is the title of the graph. So here they have on the horizontal axis, they have spring, summer, fall, winter. And on the vertical axis, they have how many people they surveyed, what they said. So what do you notice about this graph? What was most people's favorite? Yeah, winter was most people's favorite. Does that surprise you? No, because it's also your favorite. That's great. Okay. So that's this one. Let's take another one. What is this graph about? Everyone look at it for a second, and then I'll ask for someone to tell me about the graph. Okay, Alejandro, can you tell me about this graph? What's the title of the graph? Up here. Favorite food. Yeah. And down here they have 5 options of favorite food. Pizza, hot dogs, ice cream, cherries, watermelon. And what was everyone's favorite? What were most people's favorite? Yep, you see it graphed over here. So the tallest bar is ice cream. Yeah, and what is the lowest bar? Cherries. How weird. Is that weird to you? Is that surprising? So now that you have some ideas, I'm going to keep these graphs up on the board to give you some ideas, but everyone think, what is something you want to know? It can be what are favorite foods, or favorite school subjects, or least favorite chore at home. So just think of something you want to know. And we have this graphic organizer at your desks. Let me show you what it looks like. So here there will be space for them to write their question and space under each of these to write what option 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are. And so they'll do this at their desk first. They'll figure out what their question is, and they'll identify each of their options. And then they'll go around to their peers and survey. Survey to find their answers. Once you have your survey questions, stand up with your tally paper and pencil and walk around to other people that are standing and ask them to take your survey. You need to get at least 10 people's answers before you're ready to graph. When you graph, you'll write your options on the horizontal axis and the number of people on the vertical axis. Then you'll use your tally and a ruler to make bars and represent the data. And all of these will be graphic organizers that I have for the students. So there will be a blank graph with a horizontal and a vertical and a horizontal axis, and the students will fill in the gaps. So while they're doing this, as they're walking around, I'll walk around as well, and I'll hear their questions and hear how they're asking their questions to the other students. And also I'll be able to see if there are students that are struggling to come up with them, that they're still sitting down. I can go over and help them come up with their answers. And then everyone can be graphing together. So it'll be a really good way for me to see who is understanding and who needs more support. And that is my lesson.